made it. Okay. January Parks Board meeting is now in session, our coldest board meeting of the year. We have a short agenda tonight. First, we have some public comment. I think we have a couple people that signed up. If you signed up for public comment, if you want to come down to the front, you can step to the microphone. You'll have a couple minutes to address the meeting.
Okay. Good afternoon.
If you don't mind speaking in the microphone.
Okay. Is it better?
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay. First of all, thank you so much. Tonight I'm going to give a snippet from a letter that was sent to you, the committee. The title is Biltmore Hill Tennis Additional Comments, and it was sent on December 10th. And the letter was sent by Nicole Sullivan. It says, Dear Parks and Recs Gateway Advisory Board member, after watching the video of the November meeting, I want to add some content to the concerns raised by the community members who spoke and others like myself who was unable to attend the meeting. As Coach K stated, all the folks who regularly play at Biltmore Hills agree to the following points. 1, additional courts are needed. 2, the existing courts need to be rebuilt. And 3, is a 16-court facility should have a tennis center in close proximity for staff oversight and management. In addition, in response to a question at the November meeting, Park and Rec staff stated that the public concerns were highlighted in secondary conversations or in merging issues about court time among the group. This is not accurate. The community has always mentioned these concerns at the onset whenever we at Parks and Rec about the project. So basically, the meat of the letter is that Biltmore Hill was granted given the opportunity to get additional courts, and the funding was not sufficient as stated in paragraph 2. But after in 2022, a bond was approved and the community became excited again that the vision of Biltmore Hills could be doable. But it is clearly wasn't the Parks and Rec plan for Biltmore Hills. And so all of the plans and schematics designed, discussed by the city only focused on adding new courts, building a walkway between old and new courts, and reconfiguring parking for additional space. The tennis community and stakeholders believe that the vision has been intentionally narrowed. The scope and furthermore rob Southeast Raleigh of the opportunity to put a tennis complex in the League of Millbrooks. We asked Parks and Rec staff to be transparent with their intentions and explain how $7.4 million will be spent. But at the meeting, Mr. Craig states, we are in the permitting at this point. So the huge thing that we're keeping coming is that we encourage awaiting the meeting.
You can finish your thought, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. Is that we want to come before the board and ask, once again, if we as the community, and Nicole feels strongly, as many of us do, and she's unable to attend, that's why she drafted this letter, is that we don't want to be ignored as a community. We want to have our input in, helping with the tennis complex, and we want a nice facility. We feel that we deserve a facility in Southeast Raleigh. So we were just coming, hoping, asking that we get that opportunity. And again, this letter was sent to you, each of the members, December 10th. You can read in its entirety, and it's called Biltmore Hill Tennis Additional Comments. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right.
And board members, that letter came from me. I sent it to everyone.
Yep, that's correct. All right, next speaker is Eddie Watson.
Hi, all y'all. Yes. I'm Eddie Watson, president of the Raleigh-Durham Skaters Association. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Also, I work for the Parks and Recs as the roller skating instructor. We're going on our 5th year. With the roller skating community, it's starting to grow quite a bit with the things that's happening, and I hear with space, and especially dedicated space. And because there's not enough dedicated space, I would say, for roller skaters. So this is a project that we are putting in motion for an outdoor roller rink. There's several in different other cities and towns. I actually addressed it in November at the Raleigh council meeting. Matter of fact, I was after I was addressed the meeting, I was able to get in contact with council member Megan Patterson and Jane Harris. We had separately had a sit down and spoke on the ideas of why the community needs a dedicated roller rink. And they definitely support. We had probably an hour. I know we don't have an hour to speak on it, but I'm just letting you know on this conversation. We're going through the process. There's another gentleman that I spoke to about the project as well, CLH Design and Carry. I met him at the Green Road facility, and we spoke. And of course, he gave me my card, his card, and then we spoke, and I kept it with me. We spoke last week. Told about the project, how it would help the community, especially with other communities having outdoor space, whether it be with an overhang or just, something that's just dedicated. So he said he would help us, the organization, to get all the numbers together, and also, since he pretty much well-known in the construction business, help us put the numbers together as well. So we wanted to, when I talked to him, and get all the numbers and the things that we need, just would like to submit it to the board for the Parks and Recs to strongly consider. One of the locations of many that myself and my board think would be is Dix Park. There's also other things that can be considered as well within the parks system, and that would be also renovating, I say, old basketball courts into a dedicated roller rink as well. So we just wanted to see this. We're going through the process now. If the board likes, I would like to submit the upcoming information so y'all can go and review, and hopefully have a very good conversation on this as well for the roller skating community.
All right, thank you, sir. And just make sure before you leave that you give your contact information to Ms. Harris here. Oh, you have it. Okay, fantastic. That way she'll be able to submit the information to us that you give to her. Okay. All right. Next speaker is Ms. Brenda Williamson.
Good evening. As stated, I'm Brenda Williamson, a resident of Raleigh. Used to be an avid tennis player at Biltmore Hills, and I came to speak in support of additional courts, not only at Biltmore Hills, but to make the facility a top-notch destination for Southeast Raleigh. I will say that several years ago, back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, I came before the Parks Committee and asked for additional courts at Biltmore Hills, and those were the 4 that we have, and those 4 need to be redone, not just resurfaced. And so like to try to make sure that that gets done so that the courts are playable as they should be. I just want to reiterate that I also was a part of the community to come and talk about the courts, of revisioning what the courts look like, what the complex looked like. And we want it to be a complex and not just a court. And we want, again, to emphasize that on this side of town, we would like it to be compatible to Millbrook Exchange. The courts are always being used, and we want to continue for them to be used. We'd also like that, I am glad that Shaw University has been using the courts, playing tournaments there. But, they need to be tournament playable. And that's what I would like to consider. The other thing is, when we were talking about doing the courts, making the center a complex, one time before, I was contacted by a representative of Parks and Recreation, and we were talking about some kind of a ball or a symbol that would honor some of the people that came before us who were instrumental in getting Biltmore Hills Park in place. And so I'd just like to throw that out because I was looking at the art that is being done, but, we would like for that to be recognized. We believe that the amount should be increased, and that emphasize again that it should be a court, because the taxpayers approved the bond funding to do this project right, and additional funding, if necessary, can be sought competitively through the USTA and other entities. The USTA venue services, you can do that. Also, there are efforts across the country to upgrade public tennis facilities. You see the recent articles about refurbing public courts in New Orleans. And if we work together, we can create a tennis destination in Southeast Raleigh. I hope the advisory board will join our efforts, the community's effort, to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to the end of public comment, and it brings us to our Raleigh Youth Council report. We have a representative here tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elsa Weiner, and I'm Vice Chair of the Raleigh Youth Council. On December 6th, we hosted our annual Toys from Teens event at Roberts Park Community Center. Through our toy drive and partnerships, we collected over 400 toys and 18 larger items for the raffle. We were able to serve about 400 families for this event. We decorated, facilitated crafts, made hot cocoa, took pictures with Santa, and distributed age-appropriate wrapped gifts. On December 13th, we hosted our Santa's Workshop event at Abbott's Creek Community Center. Participants made crafts and received a special treat. There were a little over 20 participants in attendance. This past Monday, we started off the new year with a goal-setting meeting. The council was divided into groups, and then we came up with RYC-specific goals for the remainder of the school year. For our upcoming community service, next week, a couple of our members will join our advisor on a panel to help select an artist for a teen emergency preparedness comic book. On Saturday, January 31st, we will volunteer at an organization called Made for Me. Made for Me is an assistive device for those with disabilities out of an industrial-grade cardboard. We also have an upcoming conference, which we are co-hosting with the 2026 State Youth Council Team Building and Leadership Conference, and that is going to be with Fuquay Varina Council. And that's the weekend of the February 27th through March 1st. Also, because it's the start of the new school year or the new year, If you know any high school teens who are interested in joining, we welcome them to come to our next meeting. It's on January 26th, 7 to 8 p.m. at Kiwanis Neighborhood Center. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Raleigh Youth Council? All right, thank you, Elsa. All right. Now we have a presentation as part of our This Is What We Do series. Hey, Sarah.
This is such an official meeting. Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Powers. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Raleigh Arts. Raleigh Arts, to keep it short, we're one of the most exciting parts of, at least we keep Stephen busy, parts of Parks and Rec. And we're happy to be here tonight to just show a little bit of what we do. We have an epic presentation with hundreds of slides about what we do, so I tried to tailor to more parks and sort of fun, current stuff, but also give you a little idea of how custom our work is and the different ways we work with all of the different partners throughout the department, but also the city. We, of course, always put up our vision. Our vision is very similar to what we're all here tonight for, why you all volunteer for the city, why I work for the city, is that this is a community that we think everybody can be creative and that can find creativity in their own, the way they envision. Whether you're part of a volunteer choir, or you're making art at an art center, or you're a public artist, or a performing artist, or you're really supportive of the children in your life taking an art class. We think that's all valuable, and we try to find ways to support it all across the board. And that, of course, is part of our Raleigh Arts Plan vision. A plan that's we're kind of going to wrap up, so we'll get to that. So nuts and bolts, because y'all love this department. You're here on a very cold night to learn more about what we do. So we have 15 full-time staff. We're part of the Resources Division. Work directly with Adam Foreman, the Assistant Director of our Resources, and our peers are Dix Park, the Historic Resources and Museum, Parks Planning, as well as oh my God, communications, the most important part, right? Because if we don't know what's going on, does it really happen? So we have 15 full-time staff members. That's about 7 in the Office of Raleigh Arts, which goes over each of our programs. But we also employ dozens of part-time teaching artists throughout the art centers. And those are all local artists, so really proud of that. Pullen and Sertoma Art Centers. Has everyone been to one of our art centers? Yeah, good, 100% participation, A+. They're pretty magical places. We are really lucky to have them. They do really well. Folks have a great time. Our classes are busy and full. And I think they've really done a nice job setting a skill progression throughout our department and have been great resources throughout. We have 2 boards. I'll get into those because they're similar to what you all do. And sometimes I think you hear reports about what they're up to. We also oversee a lot of money. We are the main funder of arts and culture in the city of Raleigh. We'll talk a little bit about what that means, but we don't have that Fortune 500 company. We don't have arts without the city of Raleigh's funding for the arts. We also oversee the Percent for Art program. So that means there's a 1% for suitable capital project that's invested in public art. When you all have updates on your projects, you hear about that 1% when it's in a park, but it's also transportation and general services. The new City Hall is going to have amazing public art. And then, of course, once we buy the art, own the art, we take care of it. So I mentioned before we have a public art plan and a arts plan that are aligned with our park system plan, with our city strategic plan. The city loves planning, but it does all keep us on the same track. I think the Creative Life Plan, as I said, we're approaching our 10-year mark and are pretty much wrapped up. And of course, one of the big benchmarks on that was to create a plan specifically for public art. It's not a master plan of where to put art, but really outlines how we run a process that allows for a lot of community engagement, allows us to be adaptive for local artists with no experience working on a community project to multi-million-dollar capital project. So it's really broad and a great design process to bring, sort of all the different types of artists in through public art. It also talks a lot about how do we educate. Raleigh has great artists. How do we get more of them to be professional public artists? Because we'd like them to stay here. The two boards and commissions, I think it's worth pointing out the Raleigh Arts Commission was the first one in North Carolina. This city is pretty, innovative as, first Arts Commission, the first city hall built with a gallery in its lobby. But that board is appointed by council, similar to you. I was on the Arts Commission for 6 years before I came to work for the city, so be careful. Your life gets amazing after you roll up. But they handle much of the nuts and bolts of the funding. They bring a lot of subject matter expertise about the arts ecosystem as artists or performers, but as business people, patrons of the arts. A sub-board of that is the Public Art and Design Board. Public art, as you all know, because you do design reviews, is very specific. The technical aspects of reviewing all the city's public art projects is fairly robust, so it's a group of folks that are appointed by the chair of the Arts Commission with their expertise as architects, landscape architects, of course, artists, curators, things like that. People who can read plans, understand the materiality, all of that pretty quickly, and also be able to match the community expectations and hold the artists to sort of all those criteria for the project. So they're peers, they're advisors, they're reviewers, and it's a great, hardworking board. We don't know what we'd do without them. They really do add a lot. So back to Poland and Sertoma. Of course, you've heard about the renovation to Sertoma that's coming up. We're closing in July. We're not exactly sure how we'll survive without Sertoma being open, but we did it for Poland. I believe construction is about to start on the 3rd floor at Poland, so we will have a little bit of an expansion and an additional studio space which will open about the time we close Sertoma. It won't be the full influx, but we are working really closely with the department to sort of recreate places for the classes to be while they're going, and also we've got a little capacity at Poland to expand in those studios. If you've taken a class, you've visited the galleries, you kind of understand what's going on, but you can walk into one of our art centers and never taken any art, and there's something to do in all the different mediums, but also we have a lot of opportunities for artists that are working, whether it's an intensive, very specific medium, learn how to do plique-à-jour enamel, which I would never be able to do. It's way too hard, but the artists who are working, you don't want to go back to college, but you maybe want to learn a technique, so we do that, as well as having open studios where they can, sort of like a drop and play. You can go in and work on your work, and you don't have to have your own kiln, your own setup, and work in a really safe, and the cleanest art centers probably that have ever been. They really do a great job taking care of them. Public art, so we have a pretty robust public art. I'm sure you know a lot about capital projects, but we really work in partnership with other organizations, interdepartmental, and we also purchase art or bring in public-private collaborations. We have a process where community members can pitch their ideas. The Arts Commission reviews it. It started when we had some tree sweaters put on some urban trees without the correct permits. Now, we didn't go to art school to get permits, but you know what's easier for everybody is if someone helps the artist figure out what permit to get. Because urban forestry is amazing. They have a permit process. They could have walked this artist through it. So we learned from that and developed a process that we can kind of be a resource, a concierge, if you want to do public art in the park. And I've got some photos of this as we go through, but we sort of take our expertise from our public art team and sort of put it out to the community. So if you don't know who to call the arts office, because we're not going to say, is it a sign or not? We're going to say, hey, let's see what you're doing. We'll figure out if you need that sign permit. The municipal art collection is over 700 objects. There's installation art. There's wonderful paintings and sculpture. There's 170 works of art in this building. We just counted because we're moving soon. So which the good news is a lot of that art is going to go out into community centers and the convention center, our big public spaces, and as we get ready to move into the new building. So, this is a relatively new program. About 5 years ago, we launched our first artist residency, and I've put one in bold because I'll highlight that next slide because I think it's something y'all will be really interested in, and it's super new, so you're kind of the first to hear. The BRT, Bus Rapid Transit Projects, transportation dollars don't come, it's not easy to get art integrated in federally funded transportation projects. It's basically carve out. You can't use any of your money. The transportation department worked with my team to hire artists in residence so they could do that engagement. They could figure out art opportunities so that when it came time to start, that full design, there was a plan that they could apply for funding, because there is funding for public art and transportation that's separate, but you need someone who's talking to the community, talking to the architects, thinking through all the different components of a design, especially bus rapid transit, to kit parts. There's stations that are downtown, there's stations that are in neighborhoods, there's stations that are suburban. Each of them are different scale, but those artists were able to really figure out a great plan for, is there a story to tell at this stop? What material will work? Is it the railings? Is it the glass in the station? When New Bern comes out, there's poetry. I like the poet who did the work at Dix Park on the cottage. He's written poetry for one of the trails that goes along. So it's going to be a really interesting way to weave it in, saying like art here, art here, art here. So, and I guess that's to go back to what I should have started with. A residency or a fellowship is bringing in an artist to sort of help figure something out, help municipality, help a project team figure out how to integrate art or how to use creativity to solve a problem. So the nature preserves artist, he did a great job with the goal of we need more people to come to our nature preserves that, for a different reason than we're used to talking to people about. We know folks that are interested in coming to a nature preserve are coming there to hike and they understand invasive species and they're excited, but are the arts community coming out here? And so he's done some installations, but he did poetry workshops, he did an exhibition, and really worked with the staff to try to figure out how do we use this space and share our mission through art. The documentarians in residence did programming like how to use your iPhone to archive your family history. They went to everything we could think of so they could take great photos and get oral histories. They also helped us figure out how to communicate, because we get a lot of oral histories. We do a lot of documentation. We don't always know how to, as a city, share that. So they did a great job with that. Dix Park Artist in Residence, Preston Montague has been working. He's got a park. He's got, his focus is not figuring that out, but he's a landscape architect thinking about invasives and native species and sort of growing art. And then our wayfinding artist in residence. Did you know the city has a sign shop where they make all the signs? They have this giant mural printer, so she's getting to kind of play with all the toys over there. And this is part of a bigger effort to just make downtown a little more navigable for families and visitors. The highlighted one, why do we need a performing arts creative education fellowship? We found a gap. I want to take a beginning music lesson in the Parks Department. Nope. I mean, maybe, but there's definitely a lot of performing arts, but there isn't a the visual arts program that's really robust, cradle to grave. So we brought in an artist to sort of look at that gap, thinking through, what are innovative ways? What are we already doing that could just be used? If this is art, how do you hire a basketball coach? How do you hire a theater director? It's the same paperwork. You just have to sort of present that you need to, this is what you're going to need. So we found a real opportunity, and we brought in Renee Wimberly with Seed Art Share. She's just wrapped up her research. So Seed Art Share is an experimental theater, site-specific. So they've done, this is a puppet show in a park. They've done sort of, you walk down a street and go into different venues. They also work with a lot of other municipalities. They worked with us. They've worked at the Mordecai Historic Site in the City Museum, and have a team of arts educators. So Renee and I are really working on sifting through all that research, figuring out what are the opportunities, and know the answer is we're not going to pay you $1 million and let you store all your theater props. But there are some really great ways we can do to make it, make it better for our center staff to be able to think about these programs without being scared. So I said we were a big funder, so we get $5 per capita to invest in the arts. Most of that goes out the door in grants to arts and cultural organizations, about 43. This year we have 5 new organizations who've applied, so this is exciting. We haven't seen a big growth spurt like that since I've been around, and that's good. We know the city's growing. It can't be that 10 years ago those were the only arts organizations, and we're going to stick with it. So as we navigate post-COVID, we're seeing the groups are getting big enough to apply, or they're thinking of ways to work with our community that are really going to fit our program criteria. Lease and use agreement. So that's Theater in the Park and Raleigh Little Theater. They have full use of those buildings. They lease that from a space. So we manage the lease agreements and make sure their end of the bargain is that they have to run a community theater and do all the shows and education programs and store all the props, all that. And anyone can walk into any of those theaters and get involved with local theater right away. But it also means the groups that are the resident companies at the Martin Marietta Center. So they have the Carolina Ballet, Pinecone, NC Opera, and the Symphony. So they have long-term lease agreements that we help manage with that. I will get into technical support because this is all the stuff we do to support our arts community. And I had to delete stuff because it was getting really small, but I think the visual that we really try, it's not a lot of people, but like I said, we have an arts commission and we have a lot of partners trying to get the capacity of all our local nonprofits to be, we want them to be strong. We want their board members to have the tools they need to be good in good governance of their funding. We coach our applicants to write grants, but we also do similar work for artists, and we've been ramping up. We've got a Public Art 101 program that we've been working with RTN so it can be on YouTube, because on demand, because nothing gets people more excited about following rules or learning something than a deadline, and we might not offer a workshop in front of every deadline, so we want to have that really on demand, like how do you do a budget? How do you work with a vendor? Because public artists mostly don't build their own stuff. You don't need to weld, but you need to know how to hire a welder. We also have mentorship programs, and we're responsive to what our community asks us for too. So you'll notice sometimes, say technical assistance. Right now it's executive transitions. We've got a lot of turnover in our nonprofits, and if someone's been with an organization 20 years, it's really hard to hire someone and not have a rocky boat. So we're working with a lot of groups on that. The community toolkits and fund, some of those community initiated, people ask all the time to do these projects, so we publish toolkits. So someone says, I want to do something in my community, I don't know what. Construction fences, bus shelters, we do them enough so we could put a toolkit together and just here's the paint you need to use, here's how much you should pay an artist, and we've published them. We also do neighborhood art funds. So if you're a registered Raleigh neighborhood, you can apply for funding to hire an artist, and they can perform at your neighborhood party or they can do public art. It's up to you. So a little spotlight on our organizations in transition, as we don't joke around. If we're going to get involved with a training, we want to provide the information, but we know, especially board members in a major situation, stressful situation, a big transition, a peer cohort. So they have the board president can call another board president and say, where did you get your so-and-so files from? So they meet every month and have been in addition to the training, to provide each other support, but then we've also given them consultant advisory services so they can choose the right consultant. Do they need a strategic plan? Do they need an executive search? So it's like a full package that they'll go through to get that technical assist funding. The other thing we like to do to sort of support our ecosystem is celebrate them. So we have the annual Gifts of Gold showcase, and this year it'll be at the Dix Park Chapel. in March. I don't know why. The date is there, but I can't see it. Medal of Art ceremony will be next fall. But Block Gallery, we're opening a new show of quilts. You probably saw them when you came in. And we have artist talks, opening receptions at all of our gallery spaces. We also have a Piedmont Laureate, which is in collaboration with other counties. And this year we'll launch a poet. Raleigh will have a Poet Laureate. So we're about to put a call out for a Poet Laureate for Raleigh. That'll be really exciting. Oh, this is it. This is the date, March 12th. You are invited. All the children's art. It's really fun. Oh, I figured you'd want to see some pictures of arts and parks. These you know about, right? Your project managers, Stephen and his team bring you updates about all of these. But if you know the little stars, those are local artists. These are big calls for artists. They competed against national artists, but a really solid showing of local artists for parks projects this year. And this is where it gets interesting and where I think we all work together, even if we don't know it. So stormwater has they want to educate folks, and it's not very exciting to talk about stormwater after about 5 minutes, but artwork they found has been really a great way to talk to community members. So this is a mosaic. It's glass and ceramic. There's an otter and a raccoon. And if you've been to Lions Park, it's abuzz with all different kinds of folks. And it's the students at camps have worked together, and she has community workshops to cut the tiles and place them. Another stormwater was the cisterns. The green infrastructure funding got these big cisterns at Biltmore. They're kind of all around the building. And we brought in Adriana Almeida to paint all of them. They're super fun. And then alluvial decoder, it's a little older, but it really did break open how we can work with stormwater. And they get so much out of working with the artist. It's a different way to communicate when you're working with an artist. They find different ways to tell these stories, and it's not the same thing over and over again. We also work with Bike Month every year and do a mural. This one was on the Greenway. And when I started, we didn't have any murals on the Greenway, so I thought, I'm going to put in some murals on the Greenway, because we have done it. The Greenway's too big for maybe everyone to feel it, but it's coming. This is near Shelley Lake, off of the old boat pier, I think, near Sertoma. This is on the Rocky Branch Tunnel under Pullen Road. And the fun thing about this is they had tons of volunteers. The Seek Raleigh project, so they bring in volunteers. And this is the Rocky Branch Trail, sort of south of Western. And we have more than 20 sewer device murals. Yes. I had a conversation years ago, why don't we do this? And then we had artists say, well, let's do it. And since then, people see them and they ask to paint one. And Jen Hales on our team says, here's what kind of paint. She has a guy in Greenway, but also in Raleigh Water to pick it out. And a lot of them do have nature themed. We work with school groups that want to do nature themed artwork around it. And Seek Raleigh is it's not really it's a program where we let artists pitch ideas to do projects on city property. Most of them choose parks. And we've been doing this. It started we did it all at Dix Park. It was like an event. But what we realized is the artists wanted to be all over the city. And they didn't all want to do a performance or something that had to be seen in one day. A lot of them wanted to do something with the community, build something with the community. So Abbott's Creek Community Center, if you walk in, there's that big soaring entrance. We've long thought that would be a wonderful place for art. So when Kelsey pitched doing her weavings, this is one of the sites we sent her to, and she loved it. She did a great job. She built a loom that she put out, so anybody who came in, and they've got a lot of camps, they've got people who use the gym all the time, they could come in and weave, but she also worked with the summer campers directly and taught them how to do what she does. So these are big 50 feet weavings, and they'll be up for at least a year, and they look great. This was more of a performance space at Dick Chapel. This is the Chinese Artist Collaborative, and they make this dumpling dough, and you punch it Siba. And they had about 120 people come to do this. It was really noisy, because I've got a picture of them. They really punch it, and that makes the the gluten or the rice makes the glue in it give the cake a form. And they had singers. And this is a project you will see, artist Patrizia Ferreira. She's doing a big collaborative weaving and is doing workshops. Seek Raleigh artists don't have to do a hands-on workshop, but a lot of them do. Tarboro Community Center, glow-in-the-dark mural. Worked with some of the young athletes there to tell their stories at little paper plates, and use glow tape. So it can be really simple materials. These don't have to last forever, but it can be a lot of fun. And this is, I thought, we're really trying to find new ways to get people active and sort of cross over. And this, I thought, an artist with some glow tape. You've got glow-in-the-dark dodgeball, which sounds way more fun than any other exercise I can think of doing. If you've been at Chavis over the summer, this was a augmented reality and virtual reality where you're immersed. Augmented, you'd hold your phone up and be able to see a different world. And Jeslyn is the local artist that did this. Lupine Love is a little less technical, a fiber artist, and she did a community event where everyone could come and add the flowers to it. Low-bearing fruit and field dreams was this spring and summer at Greenway Park. It was an installation in the woods, sort of back by the playground. That was up for a while, but he also had basketball and mentorship activities just to get folks from the neighborhood interested, and then he could kind of talk about his art and practice too. Questions? I think did I do my 15 minutes all right?
That was great. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah? I think there's probably a bunch. Bob?
It's possible there's just something that I missed and don't understand, and the list of projects went by rather quickly. I know there is art associated with the Carolina Pines Avenue improvement project, and I've met the artist, and I didn't see that project on the list. Are those projects different than what you do?
Is Carolina Pines
It would be a percent for art related to the transportation improvements.
Transportation.
Her staff would oversee the artist, even if it's in transportation or stormwater.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Even though she is in our department, she oversees art installations in other departments.
I kind of missed that link because I've had Kelly and her
You've been talking to, yep.
come several times to talk about changes, locations, and whatever.
Yes.
And that's an important part of what you're doing.
Yes, especially anything in right-of-way, because it's complicated. Yeah.
Other questions? Linda?
And just clarification, you said it's $5 per resident, and that's city funds. It's a way the city figures out the budget. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's residents of Raleigh. When you have an art activity, if somebody comes from Holly Springs, you don't exclude them. They're allowed to come in? Or?
Right. I mean, I
okay.
think if it's something like you're paying for registration, we have resident and non-resident fees. We work with the same structure as anything in Parks and Rec. But the other, the grant funding goes to organizations like Carolina Ballet, where people are coming from all over the region to see it, or to small, arts education. And so there isn't particularly a limit on everybody coming in. And I think we're a region. We're a region now. The Raleigh line isn't as hard as it used to be. So, but we only fund organizations that are headquartered in Raleigh. So if someone's doing a tour, that pot of money doesn't do that. It's really supposed to stay to support the organizations who are employers here, and and they might bring in artists from other places or other. But it's a good question because everybody in the region really does benefit from that investment.
And just a comment, I have friends who work with the Raleigh Drum Circle, which I assume is one of your, and it is such a wonderful program.
Yes, we gave them a Medal of Arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
earned.
I think there's a member from the Drum Circle on the commission, Greg.
Yep,
Witt.
Greg Witt. He's on our commission. He's on our. He's the chair of our community arts and engagement group.
All right. Other questions? Ian?
Thank you for that. One of my favorite things about the parks and the community centers is coming across art
It's always really great, so thank you. Getting to one of the community comments about, art at Biltmore, and I've also had the same question, like, I'm not an artist, I can't produce this art, but can I ask for art to be somewhere? Is there a process for that?
I mean, you can always ask for art everywhere. I will say yes. Can we particularly pay for it? That's a little, the answer of how, when, and who is, that's a little more wide open. So Biltmore Hills project has an artist associated with it, and Georgie's been working with the community and is in our design phase. But the percent for art's a minimum. We have to lock it in because otherwise it would get value engineered out immediately. It's just the way it is. We learned every one of the parks, percent for art project. That's really what we could have a 5% for art. Some like Chavis, the windows. We started with $43,000 because it was 0.5% of the project budget, and we consolidated more money from other parks. But we ended up getting the window budget, and the architects were great. So it wasn't bad to spend more money on that because you would have had, it was going to be a painted mural, but because of the sort of creativity of the project team and the community's advocacy for, no, this is a really big, we can't just put this over here. Let's make it really big. That became much more than a 1% for public art project. And I think iconic. I can't imagine Chavis without that artwork there. But if you have an idea, and you call me about it, I'm going to say, hey, that's a great idea. Are you an artist? And that's a set of information we can help with because we have Seek for that. We're like, great, you should think about this. If it's a park in your neighborhood, that neighborhood art fund might come in and is a way to sort of anchor it and start it. And then that community-initiated program just will help you and your sort of crew along with it. Now, if in a perfect world, I'd have capacity to say yes to everybody's art ideas, but we don't have any shortage of ideas. But if there's a space or opportunity or an idea, it's great because we can work with, if you have money you want to spend on art, we can help figure that out. That's the easiest way to figure it out. But if you have, this is a really busy place, there's no art, we would really love it. We'd be happy to talk about how that could come because, we don't say no to art, but we can't always take it and run with it, but we can absolutely support anything that comes up. Is this about a basketball court?
No, this is actually a nature preserve, so I'll ask Scott Hazard, but just in
Yeah.
general for the community to know.
Oh, and that team is really receptive.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Other questions? Steve?
Just two quick ones. First of all, thank you. That's
Sure.
a great presentation. The Public Art Design Board, so the members are appointed by the chair of the Arts Commission. Is there a term that they serve for?
Yeah,
How's that
standard,
rotate?
2 years up to 3 terms.
Okay, so it's similar to regular boards.
Yep.
Is there any program where we do cooperatives with, like high school art groups or the arts teachers? And I'm just thinking about, a lot of the high schools have some pretty good talent that goes on. They showcase it, for example, at the state fair.
Hey, our art, in Wake County, we were really lucky. We have like professional level studios in most of our high schools. So yeah, we do try to partner with them. They have their own programs. So we do some exhibitions, but we do, we will occasionally have kids at the art centers who just really need more time with clay, more time at the, the jewelry bench. Because you can't stay till 10 p.m. in your school classroom. But we sort of feel like our partner, United Arts Council, they work with the county. They have a program called Artists in Schools. They have grants for education programs and especially programs in schools because they're the county's art department, and that a lot of the schools based in Raleigh do take advantage of it. So we sort of try to fill the gaps if there are, but they're a great resource for the county and for the school department and libraries as well.
Right. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Great question.
Doug?
Hey, Doug.
I made a pot one time at Pullen Art Center, and I've recently had some experience with the poetry group. And these kind of things are really a great personal touch. And I like your idea about closing in on the schools. I'm also thinking about your genius of infrastructure improvements and integrating art into those things that I never knew had a name on the Greenway. They're sewer devices.
Sewer devices.
Is that
Some
what they're
people call them
called?
sewer ups. I like the formal title.
Well, we have the Public Art Design Board. I had occasion recently to look at their minutes. They are packed with geniuses, and I recommend you extend their tenures, because I have never seen any group, including ours, do a job that was the standard they set. We have our team too, though, with Charles Craig, and I'd love to see some combination work there, maybe starting with Preston, who did a landscape art thing and is the art in residence. And I think I started off by saying I did a pot, but the fullness of your operation really lies in that integration into public spaces and placemaking. I'm really impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you. And Charles and his team are wonderful partners. What they're doing with native plantings. I mean, I think what they did around Pullen has been it's incredible. They have artists on their team too. They just don't put their little plaques up.
Any other questions? April?
Hello.
Hi.
That was a great presentation. We were at Chavis the other night for the Fletcher meeting, so we did get to see the window. So it's always awesome to see that. So I have a question about Sanderford Road.
Okay.
Is there any art at Sanderford Road?
I don't think so. So when we work with the Public Art and Design Board to choose not every project gets, we sort of pool it. So I don't think so. But we would, that's probably a place that we should look at as on our list of, we try to purchase artwork, to try to get make sure we want every park to have art.
Right. The only reason I asked is because they finally got a building whenever that was. So they
got some walls.
Should have had some art when they got a building. So then yes, so learning how to get through that process.
Hey, time right now is great. We'll because we need to put art places real bad.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
And maybe we could even
That'd be
walk
great.
some students and some community youth on how to do some of these things.
Yeah.
So if we could find out how to do those things in order to build a capacity, that would be.
We're doing a pilot. Pullen Art Center has a chalk mural wall, and they have invited other artists. So we've got 2 or 3 sites that want to try out in a community center to have a chalk mural. So that might be an option.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Stephen?
Yes. Again, thank you. Great presentation. And I think we all have different ideas of where we could put art in the city.
You should just go everywhere.
One that I've been brewing on, and I think we collectively could agree, is you bringing up the sewer device mural. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's a sewer device on our big branch connector proposed area. And I think we may all agree that that might deserve probably an area to emphasize one, since that was not necessarily the easiest decision, but maybe a little grace of emphasizing getting one there. It's just an idea, and I don't know if that's a way of advocating, but I would definitely advocate on behalf of.
And the Parks Bond, the money was allocated to Greenway Public Art. So there have been rides, there's surveys, so if that's great. And, the percent for art, might be something bigger, but having, smaller, anything we can take out of that. In a lot of times when we bring in big national artists, we require them to work with local artists, so understanding sort of smaller projects they can do. So they're still doing that engagement. They're still having to present to a board. And then, their skill and budget levels, like we can do some murals. But getting that skill set, it's a great, Please keep feeding us those ideas.
Is there a waiting list of artists waiting to be able to paint things like the sewer devices or murals on walls, like public walls?
No, we've approved them as they come up.
Okay.
There are a few sewer devices where there's a reason not to do it, but we're able to work something out nearby. We usually can figure out why they want to be in that area and get the team to identify a better spot.
Great.
Since you've been in the cities long enough, you know all about long-term planning. I lived in Japan for quite a few years, and the idea that their manhole covers are works of art.
Yes, they're beautiful.
If you've never seen those, and so as we plan for new infrastructure to go throughout the town, maybe pick some locations that give an idea of being able to portray what Raleigh's all about and include that within something that can be just as beautiful as functional.
I'm glad we are looking at our ordinance. We wrote it in 2009. And one of the things we were talking to our partners across the department is, what is public, right? So clearly City Hall is public, clearly their park's public. But our utilities, they have these public interfaces. But the way our ordinance is written is it's not really, it's not sort of funneled into the percent for art. But those departments, if they had percent for art, that's something they would absolutely love to do. So we're working with our, to see if we could figure that out. Because it's educational, but you're right, these moments. We have a public artist using manhole covers as inspiration. It's really interesting.
Other questions? Stephen again?
Yes, sorry, one more, I guess, question, and now moving on more of the programs. In my background, I work in textiles. I'm a product development manager for Elevate Textiles. And so seeing about the looms and the weaving, and obviously North Carolina's rich history in textiles, and seeing that in artistry, and NC State being the only textile school with at least the industry back behind it left in the country, I was just wondering kind of what exists there, and then I have a follow-on question probably regarding just how that's working right now. If there's programs, I know you have some.
Yeah, and we definitely have classes, and we benefit from graduates like yourself in our community. Our Kendall is a graduate who runs Poland, is a graduate of the textile school. So we have a lot of textile artists who show. We have classes. I actually wrote a sentence today about the sort of 3 pillars of what is really North Carolina and sort of our current mindset, and it was like innovation, textile, craft, because Black Mountain College, Penland, NC State School of Design, the textile, like these are internationally renowned and sort of innovative programs that we get buried behind acorns and cardinals and tractors. So we're thinking about like having public art at all sets that tone that we, and having fiber art is an opportunity for us to talk about, the innovative materials that have come out of sort of research related to NC State, some of the companies who are based here. But, if we have makers who are working in the materials, but also, an embroidery class, just sort of connecting those dots, because I think folks don't necessarily know about it. But design and innovation in textiles and architecture, there's a really rich history that isn't sort of as widely known as sort of our, barbecue. I think it could change. You can help me with that.
No, I love that. I'll get with you afterwards.
Super.
Speaking of which, you mentioned gaps in coverage for the arts program. Is there any focus on culinary arts?
No, but that, I've been trying not to overwhelm Stephen with ideas, because I know what it's like to be overwhelmed with ideas. But I think, I think culture is something we broadly define to include culinary, dance, all the art forms, but, gathering. But I think.
We are moving the needle. Ken and our recreation folks with launching into the community garden partnerships. We don't want people just to grow. We want people to learn how do you make a healthy meal out of it. So we're building a test kitchen out at Marsh Creek.
Awesome.
So.
Yes.
That's great to hear. Cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely bug that test kitchen and try to.
Awesome. Any other questions for Sarah? All right, before we let Sarah go, I'm going to give a major plug for Raleigh Arts and the Arts Commission. I've been the Arts Commission liaison for the past maybe 4 years, and I don't make it to every meeting. And so if you're interested, and you should be, the Arts Commission group is a great group. Sarah's great to work with. They meet, you heard her say at the beginning of this meeting that this is very official. They meet at fun places like community centers. They meet at Poland. They meet at Chavis. So if you want to join that, reach out to me, or I can put you directly in touch with Sarah. They meet on Tuesdays, and it's just a great group. And you get to hear about all the different artists. You get to see these projects, and there's art mediums that I've never even heard of that I am aware of now because I've been the liaison and I've gone to a lot of these meetings. And you get to meet a lot of the commissioners who are all artists in their own right. You could say everybody's an artist, but these guys are really good artists. And so just talk to me after the meeting if you're interested. But thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and you're welcome, all of you, anytime at either of our groups. Be happy to see you.
All right. Awesome. All right. Next item is pretty brief. You guys may have seen it in the agenda, but it is that time again for our work planning. So we are going to have a work plan committee that's going to get together. You guys saw the draft of last year's work plan. The tradition every year for folks who haven't gone through this before is that we start from the previous year's work plan. That's kind of the template that we use, and we cram it into what we're going to be doing this next year. And so if you have pet projects, you have things that are really interesting to you, you can try to squeeze it and shoehorn it into the work plan. Just keep in mind, obviously, that we have to keep our work plan coinciding with the goals of the city and the strategic plans and things like that. We can't just say, hey, I'm going to build a brand new park out of nothing that doesn't have funding and doesn't have staff support. But obviously you guys have been on the board long enough to know that the goals of the department are pretty broad, so we can find a way to probably fit things in if there's things that you've seen that you feel are missing. If you are interested in helping with the work plan this year, we usually have a group of 5 to 7 people. Ian has agreed to chair that again. He was the chair last year, and he put a Mitchell Silver approved work plan together. And once again, I think we'll try to get this done pretty quickly, sooner than we did last year. That way we have a chance to engage Councilman Silver and get his input as well, so we can get this in front of City Council, who will ultimately approve the work plan. Any questions on work plan and how we plan that work? No? Okay. Approval of the meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes that were posted? Doug has made a motion. Linda has seconded it. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And now it's time for our director's report.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you.
I will go over kind of a short report because we did not have a couple of council meetings because of the holiday. But the council did approve, we are going to hire Reed Hildebrand to look at Nash Square. And that is public realm, that is tree preservation and tree, what I would say, what is the future of the trees in the square? What do the spaces look like? And how does that have a relationship to the new city hall? So more civic in nature. Reed Hildebrand is one of the top 5 or top 10 landscape architecture firms in the world. So we're very, very fortunate to have them on. Kind of a procedural small project. If you do not realize, we have a partner called Swing Sports. We own a property in Northwest Raleigh in which we executed a 50-year lease with multiple extensions to build a major racket sport complex. They needed an entrance drive. They needed to get an easement from the city, so it was very procedural. And we executed a small amendment with Michael Van Valkenburg to close out the Gibson Play project and fix all the little quirky things we've learned in the last few months about running this facility. Congratulations to our team. We got a $400,000 grant from the state of North Carolina. We're going to add those funds to the Marsh Creek feasibility study, which you all will see in this coming year, which is a long corridor on the eastern portion of Raleigh. If you have not seen the news, we are going to make some significant upgrades long in the planning at Pullen Park. So Pullen Park will close in February and March. This was all anticipated. Lake Howell is man-made, or is human-made, we'll say. A lot of people might think it's naturally occurring, but it's not. And over the last few years, we've had multiple studies that determine we need to replace and repair the retaining walls. Your 4th park bond project was initiated, so Dix Park is done. We've initiated construction on Leesville, Strickland, and now Green Road, and bids came in, and very favorably. One of the things that we did in the previous bond was we added on to Pullen Arts Center, but we never finished the 3rd floor. We knew we would always come back, but when you're building something and we had a little bit of capacity, we built a shell. So what you heard from Sarah is we are going to build that out, which would have we would have a 3-story art center. So it would be multiple mediums on the 3rd floor. Those bids came in on budget. Everybody knock on wood. So it's a very good thing these days. And then just some interesting programs. We had family night with our youth programs. We had a parent night to give parents a break up at Briar Creek. We had our annual Golden Years celebration with the onset, unfortunately, with the fire at the convention center. Thankful for the Martin Marietta Center. They moved us very quickly, and we still had the production over at the Martin Marietta Center. And I love this number. We had multiple events over the holidays, but to give you the impact, we had 4,000 attendees and 1,400 families somehow receive a toy or a gift as a result of contributions from our community, which is a wonderful impact. Giovanna is going to pass around another opportunity for older adults. One thing we were focusing on is we have a very heavy focus on youth and children programming. Sometimes parents need a break, so this is another 21 and over. It is also a fundraiser for our scholarship program. So it is a Mardi Gras masquerade-focused event. We hope you sign up. We had an 83% increase in the visitation at Dix Park since 2024. This number really stands out. One weekend over the holidays, we had 22,000 people between Saturday and Sunday. That matches the opening of Gibson Play Plaza. If you haven't been by, the Conservancy is actually renovating the Flowers Cottage and turning that into a coffee and sandwich bar, as well as you can get beer and wine. They are creating an adventure play area, and they are increasing the area and the size of the deck. So you'll be able to look over the skyline. If you have young families, they can play on similar play structures to the Gibson Play Plaza, not as big as and grand, but still that natural aesthetic for play. And that should be done by the middle of the summer. We initiated something that we really like is the Parks Bond Tracker. So there's a link in here. It's also live digitally online, but you can go and see how much we spent, the status of each project, how much we have left to spend of all 22 of our bond projects. So an interactive tool to keep us accountable, tells you when we're behind, which kind of puts staff in a position to say, we got to get projects moving. We talked a little bit about Lake Howell and Pullen, so I won't go over that. We've had a temporary dog park at Moore Square for a number of years. We heard from downtown community members they wanted to make that permanent. Have a small delay, but the new project will start in February, so we'll have a permanent small-scale dog park. And then in February, I have a number of history tours. Wanted to focus on the Black History Tour, in which we have, if you haven't gone on it, it is amazing. It's one of our trolley tours, one of our most well-attended trolley tours, and sells out. So please consider going on that. And we've launched our camp brochure. So we're really at a time of year where we're launching into spring and summer activities. And we also have a link to zoning cases, but currently we don't have any associated with parks. So that's all I have for you.
Awesome. Any questions for our director? No? Thank you, Stephen. All right, let's jump into committee reports. Parks Committee didn't meet, but Bob and Carrie, did you guys have anything you wanted to say? Okay.
We're going to meet with Ken
Okay.
the next couple of weeks and set up a schedule to look at the following months.
Okay, excellent. Fred Fletcher Committee did meet. April?
So we have our committee, so thank you all for agreeing to do that. And we just wanted everybody to push the nominations. The window is open until the 31st. And so Mary and I are really excited. It's going to be at the same place, and you'll get way more details soon. But the main thing is that we will be looking at all of the nominees, and we have at least 5 people on our committee. So you'll get some nice, colorful emails. And you don't get friendly reminders yet because we haven't had the people identified. If you do have an award that you know you want to present, just let me know. And if that's contingent upon who's winning, just let me know. So we've got a little bit of time, and once we get all of those folders reviewed and all of those nominations, then we can start, figuring out who wants to present to who.
Awesome. That's very exciting.
Oh, and Elizabeth Gardner agreed to MC again.
Fantastic. That's great. All right. Any questions for April? No? Okay. Greenways Committee report's going to be delivered by Daniel Gilligan.
Yeah, the Greenway Committee met on Monday and reviewed both our accomplishments for last year and also started planning our goals for this year. Jeff has come up with kind of 3 anchoring principles to guide those goals. We got some draft feedback and are hoping to finalize those at our next meeting. And I'm supposed to mention Frog. Go to the Frog website and Instagram, which is Friends of Raleigh Greenway.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Any questions for Greenways? All right. And Kate, SWAT report?
So we had a very exciting meeting in January. Just great progress is being made on the leaf out plan. If you remember, that's the one for really tree preservation and planting vision for the city. And staff has been working really hard. And Craig gave us sort of an overview of sort of the overall leaf out. And the plan is that staff is going to come to the SWAT committee meeting on February 4th and really give a full presentation of everything that they're working on, with the idea that that's then going to go on to the city. Well, here, it'll come to you all, and then it will also go on to the city council in March. The date for the March meeting, I don't think is decided yet, but anyway, sometime in March. And just so you know what those components of the Leaf Out program are, first of all, there are 2 different lists. There's 7 components overall, and 1 and 2 are 2 different kinds of lists of native trees and shrubs. The real goal is to try and encourage just people in the city and also the city itself to be using native plants much more than they are right now. And the first one that's going to be of these the list that's going to be available is actually one that was put together specifically to help developers. So, and it's not regulatory, these aren't requirements, but the idea was to give really good guidance to developers to make it easy for them so they didn't have to go look at a list of 400 trees and trying to figure out, what would work next to their parking lots, that kind of thing. So I think everyone on SWAT's really, really excited about what they've put together. And at the SWAT meeting, they said that it was being graphically designed, so it'll be attractive and easy to read. And then there's another version of the list that's broader, and that one is not only for the city to use for its own plantings, but also it'll be available to citizens, trying to figure out what to do in their own properties. And one thing I think is so impressive about it, and Lauren Freudenberger, who's our horticulturalist, she has done a lot of work really figuring out with the nursery community what's available. So the list won't be telling people, oh, it would be great if you planted something and then you can't find it anywhere, that kind of thing. So really impressive work. Then there are 2 policies that are being put together, internal policies to help guide the city. One is really to really stop the city from planting invasive plants and push the city towards natives. And the other is a policy to help protect the trees that we have so that there's less impact on the trees by city, and also encouraging replanting when necessary. There's also work to develop a whole web part of the website, Raleigh website, that has all the green kind of information you would be looking for. And then the last 2 components are related to this big vision of planting 24,000 trees by Raleigh's 240th anniversary, which is in 2032. And the park staff is putting together a proposal. I guess the funding ideas need to go through the city manager, so we don't know all the details yet. But really trying to figure out how to support that with nonprofits being part of it and all the staff that's needed to make that happen. So it was an exciting meeting, and February 4th, we're really looking forward to that. A couple other things happened at the meeting. One is that Rotary, the Rotary Club of Raleigh, it's the oldest club in Raleigh. They have been raising $75,000 to plant 250 trees for the 250th anniversary of the country 250 trees in Raleigh. And they've just done great. They've raised $60,000 so far. I think they've planted at least 40 trees. There's the first one went in down at Moore Square. It's a beautiful, beautiful tree. And they're just raising a lot of awareness, and we're hoping that some of those 250 trees will count towards the 24,000. So that's sort of a summary of the meeting and sort of what's happening. There was one other thing I wanted to tell you about, and that is I mentioned before that Raleigh Parks is developing a pilot program to involve volunteers more in removing invasives. And I have a very personal involvement in this because I'm supposed to be leading the first group, the pilot group, to do this. We're hoping to kick it off in March. The first work days will be the week of March 4th. It'll be Wednesdays and Saturdays in March, April, and May. And then we're aiming to do 12 work days, and if we can't get them all in that time period, we're going to roll it on over into the fall. We're moving it around, so it'll start in JC, but it's going to be in 6 different parks in the spring. And the goal is really to get people involved who are interested in being leaders in this. So you get precedence for signing up if you sign up for at least 4 of the work days. And so we're really trying to train people so that they can do more. And I'm pretty excited about it. And I had to be, needed to get my pesticide certification license, which I did. So I'm the first volunteer who's certified for that. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. That's a lot.
I was sorry, it's so long-winded about it.
No, that's great. That's great that you guys are doing so much. Any questions for Kate? Anything that SWAT's doing? Okay. Next report, Arts Commission report. I'm going to defer to what we all just heard from Sarah. That was a great report. BPAC, Bob?
They'll be meeting on the 26th, and I'll be there.
Okay, fantastic. Dixley Leadership Committee, a couple quick items. You guys heard from Stephen, the increase in visits, it's up to 1.5 million, according to the AI partner for the park. The approval for the next stage of the Lake Wheeler Road construction project has been approved, and the permits for the work on the Flower Cottage have been granted. There's some more information as well, but those are kind of the high points. Historical Resources and Museum Advisory Board.
One note. Because the agenda was just published, I'll give a presentation to the City Council on our relationship with the Conservancy.
Okay.
And just full disclosure, the board will still have a seat on the leadership committee, but we're going to talk about that leadership committee and reconstituting it. But there's still a seat for this group on it.
Okay. Awesome. That's good news.
The presentation's Tuesday, and then we don't see you again for a month. So just
sure.
Yep.
Okay. Good. That way I won't show up next Tuesday and they're like, you've lost your seat. Okay, excellent. Historic Resources and Museum Advisory Board. I don't believe there's a report for that. And bond project liaison reports. Any liaisons have a meeting with your group?
Yeah,
Ian?
the Forestville Park. So me and Bob have been part of a really great group. The master plan for that is just about done. The CAG is meeting later this month, or next week actually. And then the master plan will come to the Parks Committee in February, and followed by the full board for approval. I strongly recommend, you don't have to be on the committee to come to the committee meetings. Be there, ask questions, think about what you want to say. Learning a lot about the process of the master plan is one of the most significant design points in a project, so that's the best place to help change the direction or shape the direction. And that is it on Forestville.
Okay, fantastic. That brings us to chair report. 2 things I'll mention. The first one is just start brainstorming for work plan ideas. Look at the work plan from last year. Look at some work plans from past years. There might be some stuff that fell off that you think need to come back. But really just, again, just like I said last year, make sure it's something that you can own, because I feel like we've been more driven and more dedicated as a group since we've had a work plan that we really feel invested in. I want that to continue. So for the next 12 months, really now, since we have about 3 or 4 months before we actually implement the work plan. It's the next 16 months. So whatever you feel like you can get passionate about, whatever you feel like you can get behind, we can't really work on it unless it's in the work plan. So we need to get it in the work plan. You need to sell it to other board members if you want it in the work plan. And then once it's in there, it has to be approved by council. But once it's approved by council, then we're golden. We have the green light to be able to work on those things. But remember, again, we work on stuff at the committee level. And so every committee over the next few months is going to be looking at their segment of the work plan to be able to kind of update that, bring that forward for the 26-27 year. Second thing that I'll mention is kind of echoing something that Beverly once said to all of us, and it was just encouraging us to get out there, get to a park, go to one different park every different month. I really liked what April said earlier where she asked about Sanderford Road, and I was at Sanderford Road a couple months ago, but I was talking more to people that were playing tennis down in Southeast Raleigh, and they were a little annoyed that they were losing their tennis courts to the pickleball crowd. But I didn't even stop to look around and say, hey, is there art here? And I go to Arts Commission meetings all the time and think about, what parks have art, what parks don't have art, and it didn't even occur to me. And so, the more, there's 15 of us, the more we're going to parks, the more we're going to greenways, the more we're going to community centers, looking at the walls and saying, not just saying, look what's on the wall here, but also looking and saying, look what's not on the wall here. That's how we get out there. And, activating, kind of like what Kate talked about with having volunteers that are going to the community looking for invasive species, volunteering or asking your networks to say, tell us what your concerns are about art, tell us what your concerns are about equity, about a park that you haven't seen change for 10 or 15 years. Chances are it's on the radar of Stephen and the department, but if it's not, that's what our job is, to be able to bring those concerns forward. So I would just ask that we all try to go to at least a different park location every month, because it's not that hard to do, and it's a lot of fun to actually do it. So that's the last thought that I have. Board comments, topics for discussion that folks have? Linda?
Quick, and this is not something to ask you to answer now, but I was over at the Rose Garden and noticed they were carefully blowing the leaves away. And I wonder how the new process the city's doing about keeping leaves in place, how Parks is going to figure out that, and that kind of ties in with the work plan. So, maybe what meeting you can update us or something.
I think that I would have to defer to Charles. I know that selectively we are more leaving leaves in place, and in some circumstances not. So,
Right.
But I don't know what that trigger and that calculus is.
Yeah, okay.
Ian? Oh, Bob.
Two quick things. The renovation schedule over at Pullen Park, if you've ever really wanted to see one of the lakes dry, based on the schedule, it should be starting to happen pretty soon. And they have assured us that all of the fish will be delicately transferred to another lake. Secondly, whoever replaced these screens and televisions, thank you very much. I can actually read them now. Thank you.
What about the change at the bottom of the lake? Is that up for grabs, or is that?
I'll meet you there in the morning at 5 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Ian?
A few quick comments. To echo what you were saying about the Play Plaza, I was there with my kids over the break and overheard a adult who had brought his entire family, his adult siblings, his parents, just to show off the park. And I was thinking, how that's pretty cool that we have something so great that somebody wants to bring, their family out just to show it off and then go home. Another, I guess, a request, and this is, getting back to the public comments. Like I think, one of our roles is if on Biltmore Hills, I think one of our roles is if something doesn't quite feel right, we should bring it up. And I think the public comments repeated have merits. And I know that it's in permitting right now. It can go through permitting. But we should make sure that we're addressing everything. A delay now to make sure that it's great is better than going ahead and making something that's good, but leaves an uneasy feeling with the community that's meant to serve. So I don't know what the process is for revisiting public comment.
Sure. Just to frame, because most of you weren't here, we have gone through, and this board actually identified that scope of that project, not staff.
Yeah.
This board approved, this is what was in the bond, this was what was funded. we went through a public process. The challenge we have is each time we hear from one or two people to stop a multi-million-dollar project when there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people waiting for it, then those people are, and it's not that their comments should be displaced, it's just there was a thorough engagement process, one that you were involved in, whether the community was involved in, and obviously the big thing is what they're requesting was not funded. So the council would have to come up with several $1 million, stop what we're doing, go back and delay the project. But if the board feels strongly, you could send that to the council to say, you've heard from 3 people and you would want to stop the project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. Other thoughts, comments? All right, thanks. Oh, go ahead, April.
So just so I'm clear, have we, and I'm sure you have, I didn't go that time. Have we gone out to Biltmore the number of times, or like, again, I'm behind on exactly all that went through that? Like we went out to, field trip, that's why I'm late. Wherever we were, where the citizens were very clear and all of the things, and we went out several times. So I was just wondering, was that the same level of engagement for I guess, about those lower courts? I'm just asking, because I don't know.
I don't understand your question.
So when there was the level of concern raised by the number of citizens who appeared for the multiple public comments about the project that night we didn't vote on, or it's a little muddled.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
Thank
gotcha.
you. So then my question is, was it the same? Was there the same amount of visitation? Have we gone out and looked at what they're talking about again? Or I understand what you're saying about stopping it because of the $1 million. I'm just wondering about because it was just 3 instead of 20, in reference to that feeling about the uneasiness about those courts not being included. So I get the dollar piece. I'm just asking about the engagement piece, just for my own, because I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I don't think there's an easy answer to it. To Stephen's point, this was a bond project. This is something that hasn't just started from the bond. Obviously, there were questions about where courts were going to go prior to the bond, and there was funding. This was originally going to go to a different location. That funding wasn't enough, and that project didn't get off the ground. That ultimately got shifted so that those courts are going to be at Biltmore Hills. When this came through Parks Committee, those concerns didn't come up necessarily. But I will say that folks, I'll pick on Ian. Ian brought up the question, hey, could this be better than what's planned? And the answer was not for the amount of money that's been allocated for it by the bond. One of the ideas that Ian floated that I thought was a great idea was having, if you go to Cary Tennis Park versus even Millbrook, Millbrook doesn't have this, but Cary does, is kind of like a showcase court, like a center court if you want to host tournaments, which is something that you could have like finals and stuff like that. That's expensive, and there wasn't money in the bond project for that. I wasn't at public engagement meetings prior to that to hear whether these same community members necessarily brought that concern up. But I think the concerns that I'm hearing both tonight and at the previous meeting are kind of twofold. One is we want this facility to be as good as Millbrook, and it should be. I think we all agree that just because this is on Southeast Raleigh and just because it's not Millbrook doesn't mean that this shouldn't be as good as Millbrook. But I think as good as Millbrook has a few things with it, right? There's going to be a lot of courts. There's going to be 16 now after these new courts get built. So there will be enough courts to be able to host tennis tournaments. But there's a difference between the new courts that are being built, which are, I think, not being built as quickly as I think some of the community members thought they were going to be built. I don't think that that's a delay that I'm concerned about, because I think that we've been on the board. We see that these projects launch one after another. I think that this is just in the queue. It's popping up, and I don't think there's been undue delay in building the new courts. But building the new courts, and Ken can correct me if I'm wrong, building the new courts and resurfacing the old courts are kind of two separate projects. All the courts that we have in the city get resurfaced on a regular basis, and the resurfacing of the old courts isn't part of the project for building the new courts. So while we build these new courts, the old courts, some of which are pretty old, still seem shabby, and they still seem like they don't play great, especially when it rains and there's water that collects on them. I've slipped on those courts before, but I've slipped on courts at other parks as well. So they're kind of, to me, it's kind of a twofold concern. Ultimately, my concern here is just that we don't lose progress and we don't lose momentum in getting these done, because at the end of the day, I think the other concern that we heard as a board was people not wanting the tennis courts to be built, some of the baseball community that lost some of their fields at Biltmore. And instead, I think the focus has been on the tennis community and giving them really a great facility at the expense of some other groups. And at this point, I think we want to see that come through. But
as far as Parks Committee, I've been to Biltmore several times, and we're planning on going again. It's an important issue. There are a lot of parts and things you need to have in your head when you start thinking about what's here and what's there, and you don't get a real, in a two-dimensional world, you don't get a real good idea as to the three-dimensional, which really exists in that environment. So we'll be going again, and we'll try to get all we can done and do it right.
So I guess my last comment would be just, I think by being on the board, like you said, just being able to help with that messaging out there, because there are only 3 people here that we see, but we all know that there's always a meeting before the meeting. So just being able to communicate clearly out there is why I asked all those questions, because they have a myopic view of we want this and we want it to look like this, but let's just talk about if you continue to do this, then you may end up with nothing, which we know is not the case, but you just want to communicate in a way that you don't want to be so, I'm going to just use aggressive. When you can't do anything about that piece, you just want to help with the people who are communicating outside of who comes here to be really clear on why it is the way it is. That's why I asked those clarifying questions. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think providing follow-up messaging to folks that come to these meetings and ask questions and have concerns is important, so that they don't think that we're just sitting up here nodding and smiling and then they go and nothing happens. I think we're all concerned with meeting the concerns that they brought to us. From what I've seen, I think we're doing that. And I think that, to Stephen's point, I think 2 months ago, we heard a speaker that came up here that said, hey, I thought my little kid was going to get to play on this court, and now my kid is in college and is never going to get to play on it as a kid, at least. And if we stop this now, how many more kids is that going to occur to, where we pause it, we say, hey, let's put a center court at this point, let's redraw the plans, and then this only gets built like maybe 6 or 7 years from now. And I don't think we want to see that either. So, all right. Other thoughts and concerns? Anybody? Okay. Great meeting, everyone. Stay warm tonight. Meeting adjourned.